They are terrified because per Axios, they now see how terribly she might do in an election matchup. Here's what Axios writes, quote, Harris would be the presumptive nominee if Biden didn't run. Administration sources believe it would be nearly impossible to unseat the first black woman vice president. They add, quote, yet many Democrats, including some current senior administration officials, are concerned she could not defeat whomever the Republican Party puts up, even if it were Donald Trump.
Just lastly, a political question. Your Politico is reporting tonight that you're shaking up the top level of your presidential campaign staff. Specifically, you're bringing your Senate chief of staff into the campaign, elevating another campaign advisor. I'm wondering, can you confirm whether that's true? And if so, what that says about the state of your candidacy, how you see yourself in the race right now?
Well, I don't know if you heard, but I'm kind of moving to Iowa. And, well, I don't know if you heard, but I'm kind of moving to Iowa. And
I was genuinely shocked when Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris. He may be old, but I thought that he had better political instincts than to pick somebody like her. I mean, we're talking about someone who did so poorly they had to drop out before the Iowa caucuses, and at various points was polling lower than Andrew Yang in her own home state.
A new Democratic primary poll shows Andrew Yang beating Senator Kamala Harris in her own state of California.
Andrew, the political world was shocked when Andrew Yang overtook Kamala Harris in her own home state.
Shocked,
I was not shocked. 7% to Harris's 6%. Are we reading too much into it, or is this a phenomenon? What's going on here?
No, I think what we're reading into is that Kamala Harris's campaign is struggling.
Right.
That's what I think we're reading into. I think we've seen that consistently. You saw it in the poll, the national poll that was out yesterday. She was behind Buttigieg, and I think that I'm having a tough time figuring out how she comes back here.
And we have accomplished a great amount of work thus far, which makes me a top-tier candidate.
Now, nonetheless, the media tried to make her happen over and over again, historic in her identity, focusing only on that because if you ever paid a modicum of attention to her, it's obvious she was one of the least talented people at the top of American politics. And hilariously enough, while the media is still carrying water for her, her boss, Joe Biden, and many of the people in the White House are beginning to realize just how big of a mistake that they made. The drama has consumed Washington over the holiday weekend. I'll try to lay it out for you. It starts with that Politico story. It was titled, quote, "Not a Healthy Environment. Kamala Harris's office is rife with dissent." Now, the story details how Harris's staff is inept, bumbling, afraid of Harris's chief of staff, Tina Flournoy, but that ultimately Harris fosters an environment which is insular, where she does not want to get challenged or hear other facts.
All right, just one more time, but you won't confirm whether those specific staffing changes have been made.
I haven't read the article, Anderson, so I can't tell you what the article says, but I will tell you that I'm very proud of our team, and we have accomplished a great amount of work thus far, which makes me a top-tier candidate.
All right, let's get you now to the 2020 presidential run. A new national poll is showing a big drop in support for Kamala Harris. KPXY's Devin Feely on how this could mean trouble for the California senator.
And we have accomplished a great amount of work thus far, which makes me a top-tier candidate.
Although some polls indicate don't know ranks above Kamala Harris.
And it's so bad. 22 of her former and current aides spoke to Politico of how bad of a boss she is and how terrible it is to work for her. Now, it's always amusing to see that happen. The proper thing probably would have been to just brush it off. But the White House went into full defense mode, with White House advisor Cedric Richmond saying on CNN that the people leaking against her are trying to sabotage her. And now, the reason, though, the White House is so concerned about those stories is, number one, they know it's true. Harris's campaign was rife with missteps. She had no strategy. Her staff were consistently leaking against her during her campaign. None of it is new.
And we have accomplished a great amount of work thus far, which makes me a top-tier candidate.
This week, a new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll has Kamala Harris losing ground with voters and Democrats Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden strengthening their lead. Harris will be campaigning in Iowa this weekend with other 2020 candidates. Vaughn Hilliard live with us from Waterloo, Iowa. Great to see you, Vaughn. And Harris's staff announced Thursday morning that they will be doubling resources in the state, adding several new organizers and offices. And a reporter says they heard Harris emphatically express how serious she is about the state. I think you know what I'm referring to. Is that going to be enough for her to make a comeback with voters there?
That's a good question. We're 136 days out, Allison, from the Iowa caucus. To note, Kamala Harris has been in this for now 8 months. So there's about 4 months left for her. And as you just noted, she, using a little perhaps profanity, said that she was going to be moving to Iowa here.
But number two is because they are terrified. Because per Axios, they now see how terribly she might do in an election matchup. Here's what Axios writes, quote, Harris would be the presumptive nominee if Biden didn't run. Administration sources believe it would be nearly impossible to unseat the first black woman vice president. They add, quote, yet many Democrats, including some current senior administration officials, are concerned she could not defeat whomever the Republican Party puts up, even if it were Donald Trump. They continue, some Democrats close to the White House are increasingly concerned about Harris's handling of high-profile issues and political tone deafness, and question her ability to maintain the coalition that Biden rode to the White House. That's as good as Washington drama as it gets, folks. People who are close to the White House and people inside of it going around town saying, oh no, there's no way this woman would win if she had to run in 2024. And worse, there's nothing we can do to make sure she's not the nominee because she's the first black vice president.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like
and I inhale. I did inhale.
Okay.
It was a long time ago.
Harris explains her pro-pot stance and admits that she indulged in the substance while in college. Then this exchange happened.
What does Kamala Harris listen to?
What were you listening to when you was high? What was on? What song was it?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, yeah, definitely Snoop. Tupac, for sure.
People quickly jumped on what they saw as a contradiction, given that Tupac and Snoop Dogg were not producing music while she was in college. Harris graduated from Howard University in 1986 and later got her JD from the University of California in 1989. Tupac's debut album, Tupacalypse Now, came out in 1991, and Snoop's first album, Doggy Style, followed a few years later in 1993. So, if you're just listening to this piece on the radio, it sounds like Harris's memory is mixed up. Or maybe she lied about what her stoner jams were in an attempt to sound cool. Harris has been accused of pandering because of the way this played out. And it's not the first time a politician has been put in that position on the show.
What's something that you always carry with you?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Are you getting information right now?
Hot sauce.
So while Harris was trying to make her position on pot clear, she found herself in a pretty sticky situation.
Do it.
Listen, I think that it gives a lot of people joy, and we need more joy.
We need more joy in this world.
Things based upon lies always fall apart. Everyone, literally everyone, knew Kamala Harris was a terrible politician. Inauthentic, her interviews are a train wreck.
On your mixtape, what would be like your favorite 3 songs?
Oh, okay, let's see. And it is because we put those resources into this initiative and put the spotlight that I was able to bring to it, frankly, we were able to improve attendance by over 30%. Not one parent was sent to jail.
Well, you pushed for a statewide law, right? A statewide truancy law, and people were thrown into jail under that law.
Not by me.
Not by you, but you supported the law.
She is not particularly eloquent or striking in any real way. And I don't forget that this is how she handled her very first high-profile interview as vice president.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
I'm here in Guatemala today. At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
God, what a mess. Basically, the only thing that this woman had going for her was her heritage and the media, who did everything they possibly could to get her over the finish line during the primary, where she still crashed and burned in one of the worst campaign defeats in modern memory. Now, she was given an ill-advised second chance by Joe Biden, who calls himself a transitional president to someone like her. But now that the transition is actually possible, the very people who work for Biden are realizing there is no way she could pull it off. Watch this space very closely over the next several months and possibly the next couple of years. If Joe Biden does not end up running for president again, this is all a moot conversation. But as his own advisors told Axios, a man would be 81 years old when seeking re-election. The truth of the matter is you're fighting against an actuarial table every day, and crazier things have happened before in politics. It would not be a surprise at all if Harris does end up the nominee, crashed and burned again, and these people would have nobody but themselves to blame for it.
Well, I don't know if you heard, but I'm kind of moving to Iowa. And
¡Ya aborrecí la cocina! ¡Ay! ¡Ay!
And we have accomplished a great amount of work thus far, which makes me a top-tier candidate.